I'm gonna beat you into the living death. Welcome back to Yelling About Mixed Martial Arts, the show where I yell about mixed martial arts. Well, my African brothers and sister, the champ indeed has a name in the middleweight division, and his name is Dricus du Plessis. His name might as well be Popeye with the way that he fights, but goddammit if that drunken bar-brawling sailor doesn't figure out a somehow and a some way to win a bout, in this case against one of the most dominant champions this sport has ever known. Motherfucker got and retained a championship belt, fighting with the same style Russell Crowe used when he was fighting around the world on South Park.
Do you know who I am?
Oh, excuse me, I was just...
Goddamn smartass!
In the land down under known as Perth, Australia, Dricus would become the first person ever to submit the former champion after going 3 competitive rounds and ultimately wrapping his arms around the neck of Israel Adesanya. After that, he once again wrapped his arms around the neck of Israel Adesanya. It was nice to see the mutual respect between these two after their heated rivalry, which was both a multi-layered conversation about race and colonialism on the continent of Africa, and a pain in the ass to navigate as a white guy. Actually, you don't even know the history of colonial oppression in apartheid Africa, so you're not even qualified to talk about this stuff. And also, if you'd open your eyes, you'd realize that apartheid mirrors the racial injustices we have in the United States. So Izzy has every right to call Dricus a cracker. Dear God, shut up, please. You really should just check your white... Dricus retaining his belt and putting an end to his Africa measuring contest with Adesanya was the biggest news to come out of UFC 305, but it certainly wasn't the only, as this card had some banger performances and your standard dose of bizarre shit on top of it all. On the plus side, Kai Kara France bombed Steve Erceg into the nether realm, Carlos Praetis became the first person to knock out Li Jin Liang, and Mateusz Gamrot went to war with Dan Hooker in a razor-close fight that saw Dan winning, even after getting a little color on his face to match the horrible tattoos he has emblazoned on his torso. On the negative side, Herbert Burns was there. No Herbert Burns proving that he'd be better suited to manufacturing canvas rather than fighting on it was just the tip of the weird shit iceberg at 305. His disinterested, sluggish, and all-around atrocious performance came in early on the prelims before Josh Kulabau showed an amazing lack of fight IQ by selling his fight with Ricardo Ramos down the river, and a fight where Tai Tuivasa got undeniably beaten by the technical striking of Jairzinho Rozenstruik, only to have some half-brained judge give Tai the fight 30-27. That judge would be relieved of his duties that evening, getting the same pink slip that Tai is probably looking at sometime in the near future. Shout out to the Department of Local Government, Sport, and Cultural Industries down there in Wallaby Land for achieving a rare commission W by giving that judge his walking papers. Also on the unusual side of UFC 305 was the verbal submission stoppage in the fight between Walter Walker and Junior Tafa. There's a whole lot of speculation and oddness surrounding the finish, so let me throw my own armchair analysis into the mix. Walker had Tafa in a leg lock as they rolled near the end of the first round when some screaming occurred, leading the ref to stop the fight. To be clear, the stoppage was to the letter of the law, as written in the unified rules. Screaming mid-fight is considered a verbal submission. It's of course at the ref's discretion, so he could have given a warning for the screaming at first, but if he wants to be a hard ass about it, he's still within his right. Verbal taps due to screams of audible pain are in place to protect the fighters from being too tough for their own good and keeping their bones in as many pieces as God gave them to them, so whether it was early or not, he wasn't wrong in his action. Thankfully, no one seems to be getting on the ref's ass about the stop because the stoppage itself was the least confusing factor in the entire equation. You see, I have seen the clip of that finish about 30 times by now. And in that clip, there are either 2 screams that can be heard, or it might be 1 scream in 2 parts, and it's hard to tell who's doing what screaming at what time. One scream is definitely Junior's, which led to the stoppage, but what was the scream in the earlier part of the sequence? Was it Junior? Was it Walter? I speculated on the podcast I did with Chase Parton here on the channel Monday nights that it might have actually been Walter who initially screamed as a display of dominance, and Junior answered back in defiance, but I'm just as stupid as you are, so it could have all been Junior, it could have been Walter, maybe it was the referee, or maybe it was the one-armed man. Whatever it was, it finished the fight, leading to Junior lightly slapping Walter in the face, and then Walter calling out Junior's brother Justin. It's amazing how much flippy dip bullshit can happen in the span of less than 10 minutes time. In other news, Khalil Roundtree has secured himself a title shot against Alex Pereira, and it makes a whole lot of sense considering that there is no one else qualified to fill that slot. There is no other person with a big beard and a wrestle-heavy style and wins over Johnny Walker, Thiago Santos, Volkan Oezdemir, Nikita Krylov, and Iwan Kutelaba twice who could play the part of title challenger against Pereira. No Khalil Roundtree with his recent steroid pop and huge wins over Anthony Smith, Chris Dawkins, and Dustin Jacoby, and the number 8 next to his name is the man for the job. Dear God, you go to one draw with Jan Blachowicz and your career is irrevocably fucked forever. Just remember Magomed Ankalaev, winning and waiting worked out for Bilal Muhammad, and who wouldn't want to be compared to him? Finally this week, life continues to suck for Muhammad Mokaev. The once surging flyweight was of course cut from the UFC a few weeks ago, signed a contract elsewhere, but it's not with the PFL, we know that for sure, and then promptly crashed his car into a ditch while driving in Dagestan. When the Dagestanis say smesh, they aren't talking about your vehicle, Mo! One does have to wonder if crashing things is all that Mokaev is capable of at this point, as his career is certainly in the body shop at the moment, and the memeing of the man online has likely totaled his timeline. For yelling about mixed martial arts, this is Thinker St. James reminding you that if you care this much about MMA, you too are a fucking moron. It's worth mentioning that Casey O'Neill picked up a decent win at UFC 305 and did a few of Ray Gunn's breakdancing moves from the Olympics. Thank you for that, Casey, as you've now kangaroo hopped your way into my heart, considering you look like every girl at every goth night that I've ever hit on. Dark hair, dead eyes, the only thing that's missing is Joy Division and 2-for-1 snake bites.
It's